one of those engines, traction engine things, you know. And in those early days, it was a rough old hill, and this road was rough for years. All white stones, because of course it's the hill. It's all the stone. There is white stone, really.
Yeah. So so the Tar Macadam came along in the 20s.
Yes, it was. I was about 10 when that happened. Yes, and it was all in there. But of course, those days everything was moved with horse and cart, and they were all these great big horses, and they used to have to go like up the hill like that, you know, to get purchase on the road to climb the hill. Yeah, but the coal was delivered in a two-wheeled big high-sided wagon, and the brewery had a huge wagon with two big strong horses on there, because of course the barrels of beer were important, weren't they, to men? And there was an off-licence down the pitch here, just halfway along this road here there's a Spillman's pitch, and halfway down there was an off-licence, and Mr. Vasey had like a little shop front window with all sweets in for us children to go down. We had to go down and put our noses on the window and decide whether we would have, you know, chocolate drops or licorice skipping ropes.
Skipping ropes.
But it was all smelling of beer, and men used to go with a jug and go in and buy it, you see, over the counter. It was off licence.
So I know there were about 4 pubs up the top, but people used to take jugs to the off licence as well.
Yes. Well, it was only an off licence down there, but you know, it was in a big cask, and they drew the jug full of beer, and I don't see there was anything wrong in that, taking it home and drinking it.
I know more people talked in the street then than they do now, and you know, the shops have changed, and cars are another reason why people talk to each other less in the streets. So what would it be, a typical day, say, for your mother or for yourself when you went shopping locally?
Well, we had a co-op store at the end of our road. The end building there was a big co-op, and that was the centre, really, of all shopping activity around here. And as well as that, several people came with carts. And we had a man from Worcester came with potatoes and vegetables once a week. And then the milkman always came round early morning with his trap, a horse, and the man came with the bread. That was from the co-op. That was a big high-sided vehicle with Tom the horse. I mean, children knew all the horses, you know, and went out and stroked them and talked to them. And Tom used to always get into trouble putting his head over the wall and eating people's cabbages, because people along here had the front, and a lot of them grew vegetables in the front garden, you know. Every piece of land was used, and people grew vegetables and lived self-supporting, which is what we're trying to do today, actually. Going back to that.
Do you think people were... I think this is a difficult question to answer, because this project has made me think about whether people were happier or more content with their lot in the past, even though they had less material.
Well, I'm sure they were, because what you didn't have, you knew you weren't going to have anyway, so why worry about it? You didn't have a burning ambition for things, you know, because didn't come into your orbit at all. You were happy. And I really think in those days the family, people used to help one another, you know. My father was always giving any produce in the garden surplus. Somebody, if he come out, would you like a parsnip? Would you like some carrot? And you see, a little thing like that, we helped one another with all the time.
So the atmosphere of World War II, you know, we're all pulling together. Really, you're saying that atmosphere of community help existed before the Second World War.
Yeah, definitely. But of course, during the war, a lot of things changed here in the fact that so many people were evacuated to this area to work, and we had no end of what we call foreigners we didn't like, really. I mean, we really, I suppose you get partisan when you get old, but in a village like that, you stood out, really, a couple of Londoners, therefore, with anything, we weren't exactly welcoming, I don't think, to the people there. We had several schools evacuated from Birmingham to start with, and they all went back again, and some went to Wales, and then we had a lot of people came that were drafted into the factories, and people had to take evacuees whether they wanted them or not. And at that time I had gone into the forces, and so my mother had a spare bedroom, and so she didn't really want, but they gave her 2 girls to stay, had to come and stay, and she was desperately unhappy with them because they were completely horrible girls, dirty and left, They never fitted in. All they wanted to do was go out in the evening and go to the nearest pub, which wasn't a bit what my parents had ever thought and liked at all, so they were not very happy about that. But they accepted it because it was forced on them, really. Yeah. But anyway, that was only part of the wartime.
Right, no, that was fascinating. So now I have a question about what has made Rodborough a special place for you? Obviously, the fact
because of it being, we really always felt that it was the country. We loved the common. We spent as children, we spent most of our time up there playing. Parents never worried because you were quite safe, and children would go up there and play, and we knew every nook and cranny, every little place, and all the streams and all the places where birds nested and what have you. It was partly like a local living in the country without, not quite, if you can understand me.
So, did you have a favourite walk up to the common or around the common?
Oh yes, I've always walked up onto the common there, always up to the common, straight over the common, right over to the Bear and down all round the Manor Hill and back round the road coming round the hill. We always walked with a purpose. We didn't just go up and come back. We were out an hour or longer. Every Sunday, my parents, after Sunday lunch, and they'd had a rest, they used to get ready and go out and have a nice walk together. And I think that was a sort of cemented their loving relationship up to a point. They shared things like that. But people did that. I mean, that's what you did for go for a walk. We didn't have other things. You didn't have much going on locally. And I suppose you could have gone to stroll. There were things like dances for the younger ones, but in point of fact there was very little entertainment, and of course no television. We had radio eventually, which we used to like to listen to, but mostly people were all gone to bed by 10 o'clock at night. Lights went out, and the men here all worked down in the factories, different factories. There were several factories, you see, Irene, Daniels, and so on. And so every morning you'd hear the different hooters going, and men would be running along the street, getting down to their job of work in the morning, and they were away all day, and the wives had stayed home. They did the washing, and they looked after the children. It wasn't till really later in the wartime that women started having jobs at all outside of the home. In fact, my mother never did have a job outside the home. She was always there for me.
That was a wonderful picture you just painted there of, I'm imagining the hooters going off and people scuttling down to work, and as you rightly say, the lights out at 10 because people got up early. Well,
they had to. Most of the factories started at 7 or 7:30, Daniels did, so the men had to be up and out. You can hear them all clattering along the street in the morning going off to work, because they all walked to it, because it was just down the valley there.